to talk about Kawhi Leonard, okay? You know, in the past, I've said that the media has overrated Kawhi Leonard's legacy. And to this day, I stand by that statement. I think the media has sort of tried to lead us to believe that Kawhi Leonard is one of the 25 greatest players that's ever lived, when in reality, he's more closer to being a top 50 player of all time rather than a top 25 player of all time. I wouldn't quite put him in that class, you know, but today I wanted to kind of evaluate Kawhi Leonard as a player. I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of Kawhi Leonard's game, okay? So let's talk about it. Let's dive into it. So Kawhi Leonard's had a 9-year career so far, and during that 9-year career, he's been a 5-time All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, a 2-time NBA Finals MVP. You can make the argument he's the greatest Toronto Raptor of all time because he led the Raptors to their first ever NBA championship. Right now, today, I'd say Kawhi Leonard is easily one of the 10 best players in all of basketball, and to me, he's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. Now, the pros of Kawhi Leonard. What makes Kawhi Leonard good, okay? What's so good about Kawhi Leonard? Well, the thing you have to appreciate about Kawhi Leonard is wherever he goes, usually that team wins at a high level. Okay, the San Antonio Spurs have not quite been the same since Kawhi Leonard left them, okay? The San Antonio Spurs, they won a championship, and Kawhi Leonard was a part of some really good, really talented teams in San Antonio, and he ended up winning a Finals MVP in San Antonio. In Toronto, gets there the first year, they win a championship. The Clippers, they're competing for a championship now with Kawhi Leonard, even though they have been a disappointment over the past 2 seasons. And you can't take away the fact that Kawhi Leonard is an NBA champion, okay? You know, Toronto, they went out there on the market and said, we need a guy that can be the best player on a championship team. We need to upgrade over DeMar DeRozan. Kawhi Leonard was that guy, okay? And Kawhi Leonard has, to me, a really good work ethic. Now, I think Kawhi Leonard, to a certain degree, has peaked a little bit because I don't see the same hunger that I once saw from Kawhi Leonard. I think that his skill set has peaked a little bit. I don't know how much better he can get as a player. I think he's maxed out, you know, his overall skill set, and ceiling as a player, I should say. But the first year Kawhi Leonard got to the NBA, he averaged 7.9 points per game. 5 to 6 years later, Kawhi Leonard turned himself into a legitimate NBA superstar. So you have to applaud Kawhi Leonard. He's a player that has won big games in his career. He's been a part of championship teams. He's going to contribute to winning, and for the most part, he's a top 10 player in the league, okay? So, he's a pretty good player. Going to be a Hall of Famer one day. Now, the cons of Kawhi Leonard, the negative side. What I kind of despise the most about Kawhi Leonard, and by the way, there's a lot to like about Kawhi Leonard, but I'm nitpicking here, okay? But when I nitpick Kawhi Leonard, what I don't like about Kawhi Leonard is that on a nightly basis, during an 82-game regular season or a 72-game regular season now that the games have been reduced a little bit, Kawhi Leonard isn't Kawhi Leonard on a night-in and night-out basis, okay? The reason why is because he's not always available to play, or at least he doesn't make himself available to play. Every single year, he doesn't go out his way to do it, okay? And that's fine, and I'll get into why that's not a good thing in a minute, but in 2015, Kawhi Leonard played 72 games. In 2016, he played 74 games. Outside of that, he's played 62, 58, 66, 64, 9 games played. You know, that year he got injured. 60, 52, and 52 games. And often, the reasons why he's missing games is because of injuries, for one. So he's been banged up a little bit. And because of load management. Now, when you play for a team like the Spurs that has multiple Hall of Famers on the roster and you want to load manage, that's fine because you've got really good players to pick up the slack for you, okay? Same thing with the Raptors. They had a really talented roster a year or two ago, and Kawhi Leonard was able to sit those amount of games. Same thing with the Clippers, a really talented roster where If Kawhi sat, his teammates could pick up the slack. But what if Kawhi Leonard played for the Hornets? What if he played for the Grizzlies or the T-Wolves and had that same mentality? I don't think it would go so well in the locker room because, see, when your best player is not going out his way every single day to make sure that he's ready to play and ready to go, that reflects on the team. And it reflected on the Clippers roster last year, and come playoff time, they weren't ready to play because they didn't have great chemistry. Okay? And what I admire the most about Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Kevin Durant is that when they can play, they play. They're not worried about load managing, okay? And another thing about Kawhi Leonard is this. He is not the ultimate alpha. He lacks a killer instinct. And by the way, you don't necessarily always need to have this killer instinct to win a championship. Sometimes the talent just outweighs that, okay? And we saw that in Toronto and San Antonio. The team was so talented, it did not matter about Kawhi Leonard's limitations as a player, okay? But as an analyst, as a guy that covers sports, it's my job to go beyond what we think and go beyond what we see, okay? In San Antonio, Kawhi Leonard had a lot of support. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Greg Popovich. He did not have to be the alpha of that team. He could just kind of ride the coattails and be great in spurts when he needed to be. And that's what he was in the finals when he won the MVP. Same thing in Toronto. Kyle Lowry was the grown-up in the building. Fred VanVleet was taking the big shots in the clutch. Okay? And also in Toronto, they were the number one seed before Kawhi Leonard got there. And what's notable that year is that was the first year LeBron James left the Eastern Conference. And Kevin Durant didn't play in the NBA Finals. So you can make the argument Kawhi Leonard got a lot of breaks that year, okay? I know a lot of people don't want to point those things out, but I care about the details, people, okay? And we saw for the first time in LA with the Clippers this year, Kawhi Leonard have to establish a culture. Kawhi Leonard had to be the undisputed leader, the undisputed alpha on his team. And he failed. He did. The Clippers, come playoff time, they were unprepared, they underachieved, and they were bad late in games. They could not close the deal versus the Denver Nuggets, and they blew a 3-1 lead. And a big reason why is because Kawhi Leonard is not a closer. He's not an alpha. And he, quite frankly, is way too quiet for my liking. He's not a communicator. The guys that are the most clutch in big games are guys that communicate. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, even LeBron James at times. These are vocal guys. Kawhi Leonard, not the most vocal guy. And when you're winning, it's all good. But when you're losing, and when your back's against the wall, or when you're in a crisis, I don't want Kawhi Leonard on my roster. I'm sorry. I don't want any part of the guy. Okay? And more times than not, in order to win championships, you have to overcome those obstacles. I want to see if Kawhi Leonard can overcome Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks once again for a second straight season. I want to see if he can beat LeBron James and the Lakers. I want to see him versus Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets. I want to see it. But I don't think we're going to get to see it. Because, quite frankly, I don't think Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers have what it takes to win a championship. I just don't think Kawhi Leonard has the alpha mentality to be the undisputed best player and leader on a championship team. Okay, I just don't think he does. So we'll see, but those are the pros and cons of Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi is going to be a Hall of Famer, but those are where my concerns lie. But the bottom line is Kawhi Leonard is well respected. He's turned himself from a role player to an MVP caliber player. And when it's all said and done, Kawhi Leonard is going to be a Hall of Famer one day. And he deserves to be praised for that. So those are the pros and cons of Kawhi Leonard, at least to me. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.